Hey everyone, how's it going? And welcome back to part 4 of this character creation workshop. My name's Ellie, I'm a trainer at Maxon. And once again, I'm joined by a very special guest, Joe Herman. Hey Joe, how you
Hi,
doing?
Ellie. Pretty well, pretty well. Thanks everybody for coming. I see your nice comments. Thank you. And I hope everybody's ready for another exciting trip through the wonderful world of 3D computer graphics.
Absolutely, I know I am. And hey to the lovely people in the chat already. So hey to Wesley, Trish, Hannah, Diaz, Bernd, Marcelo, Jay, Miles. It's good to see you all. It's good to be back on this Wednesday, for me, Wednesday afternoon, but for some of you, I'm sure Wednesday morning or lunchtime.
Yep.
Cool. So let's get into what we're going to be doing today. So if you are new here and you don't know what we're doing, then welcome to a new workshop. The whole idea of these 6 weeks is to help you learn to design and rig a character ready for animation in just as little as 6 weeks. So this is the course overview. We're now on part 4. I can't believe we're already on part 4. So far we've gone through sculpting in ZBrush, preparing, converting our character for animation, unwrapping and texturing, and then today we're going to be diving into hair. But I believe we're also going to be diving into some of the stuff we didn't get to last week. So I'll let Joe explain that in just a little bit. And if you do want to find out what is happening over the next week, so for example parts 5 and 6, inside the handout section of GoToWebinar there is a course guide with all the information of each individual session. Also, if you ever missed one of these sessions and you think, hey, I really want to dive into sculpting a character in ZBrush, all you have to do is head over to the Maxon Training Team YouTube channel. We have a playlist called Hands-on with Maxon, and in there we have all the recordings for all of these sessions and all the other sessions that we do. A few extra things. We just talked about that first point, session recordings on Maxon Training Team YouTube channel. Also, Joe's been kind enough to put together some project files and assets for throughout the whole of these 6 weeks, and that can also be found in the handout section of GoToWebinar. We're also extending trial licenses of Maxon One. So if you don't have access to a Maxon license or a Cinema 4D license, then don't worry. All you have to do is create a Maxon account, activate the trial, that's really important, and then drop me an email at training@maxon.net with the title #HowMaxon, and I can extend your trial until the end of Feb. So far, I think aside from one, they should all be done. If not, just drop me an email again. Also, don't forget, we like to see the work that you create. I know a lot of you do this already, and we have a very special hashtag, which is #HowMaxon. And then feel free to add us on socials. We have @JoeHermanArtist and @ItWasElly is myself. So part 4, adding hair to the model. And I know that's going to be part of today's session, but Joe, I think, are you going to start off doing some of the stuff that we didn't quite get round to in last week's session with regards to Redshift? Is that kind of
Yes,
the plan
so we're
today?
actually going to start off by talking a lot more about how to texture the whole model using a bunch of different Redshift techniques. And so we're going to do that, and then we're going to get to the hair towards the end of the class. We should be able to get to both, and whatever we do, we can spill over a little bit to the next one, but I don't think we will need to. But so yeah.
Perfect. That sounds good. So are you ready for me to hand the screen over?
I'm ready. I'm ready. Let's do it. Okay.
There you go. Hopefully you should just get it. Also, hey to Jerry in the chat. Morning from Chicago. How's it going?
Yeah,
9 PM in
Chicago. I see
Mauritius.
Mauritius. That's pretty cool.
Very jealous.
I see. Hey Greg. Hey Miles. I see Berlin, and hey Bernd. Yeah, winter's on its way, but it's doing fine for me. And Ireland, that's cool.
It is cold in England.
It is.
As Jay will know, being in Newcastle. It's
right.
chilly.
Right. Hey Wesley. So yeah, so before I begin, what we're going to do is, does anybody, so as Elly did a nice job of sort of summarizing everything that we've done so far. And yesterday we started talking about starting to texture the model, and we sort of painted a map, color map for the face, which if you remember, yeah, it does seem a little weird this winter, by the way. I mean, a little warm this winter. But the thing is that if we remembered yesterday that to use Cinema 4D's paint system, we create the map in an older legacy material, the legacy Cinema 4D material, and then once the map is saved out, then we can bring that into Redshift. And so we're going to go on with some texturing and Redshift techniques today, and get on to some other things after that. So just putting hair on the top of his head. So before we begin, does anybody have any questions based on anything that we've covered so far? And I'll let you guys think about that for a moment. Otherwise, we'll just get straight into it.
At the moment, nothing, but I'll let you know if we get some.
Yeah. All right, so let me hide my webcam. And let's get, oh, it says you've hidden webcams, but you're still sharing your webcam. That's odd. Okay. You've hidden webcam. Okay. Anyway, so hopefully everybody can see my screen okay. And now what we're going to do is, okay, so last session, so that's the map we made. We sort of painted it up. Actually, we painted the nose. I actually painted some eyebrows on him because you can just go right ahead and paint eyebrows on him. By the way, just so you know, you can open up the maps that you paint in Cinema 4D. You can open them up in Photoshop if you want to go ahead and paint on them in Photoshop. It's not a problem. And for those of you, you were asking, some of you were asking, can you export the Polygon layout from the UV editor, okay, inside of and use that in Photoshop? And the answer is yes. And you find that under here. Where is it again? Outline polygons, view, outline layer. Okay, it's under outline polygons. It's gray right now, but if I were to, well, I'd have to start a whole thing, but well, why don't I just show you that, because it's a useful thing to do. I wasn't planning on showing it, but let me show you what it is. If I started a new material here, like a new default material, and went over here, and in the color map, for example, I said, like we did last time, we said create new texture. We'll just make it whatever, white, okay? And then we go into the paint area here, and let's say, for example, we were to add that material onto our head, okay? And then, so this is the material here, okay? And if I were to go ahead and if I were to say layer here, background, and if I were to say, okay, now I got to remember how to do this, outline polygons, why is it gray? Let me make a new layer. Oh, actually, I think I have to select. I think I have to select all the polygons. Let me see, layer. Outline polygons. Here we go. So what it does is it outlines it with the brush, and we have to make sure that the brush is selected with a sort of a black color here. And then you sort of make it a small brush. And then if we go over here, let's go to this part and we say layer, outline polygons. There it goes. Okay. So there you have it. And now you can go ahead and I've scaled my monitor up to, by the way, 1920 by 1080. So now if I hide the UV map, I mean, if what I can do now actually here in this paint setup under the layers, as a matter of fact, you can actually see it now painted right onto our model. But actually, I'm going to flatten this, okay, because you can see that it's on its own layer here. But if I were to go ahead and if I were to say flatten layers, just like in Photoshop, by the way, there you have, merge layer down, merge linked, flatten visible layers, flatten layers. You can work with layers in here just as, and there's layer masks as well. So now if I were to right click on this layer, I can say texture, save texture as, and it says like save as, and we'll just say, we'll save it as a PNG. Okay, and we'll click options, whatever, and we'll click OK, and I'll just save it somewhere. Let's just save it in anywhere for right now. We'll just save it here. We'll just call it polys. I didn't even really look what the resolution was of the texture I created, but if I click save, now if I go into Photoshop and if I were to open that, okay, and if I were to go to the this under polys, see now it comes into Photoshop, and now you've got your layout, and you can actually paint right in Photoshop onto your layout. So if I were to select this, actually, I could paste it right on here. Of course, it's the wrong size because I didn't pay attention to, when I created the texture, I didn't do it before, but you could do that yourself. And it's, for some reason, it's not square, but that's sort of like what you would do to, there, actually, that's how you do it. So as you can see, if let's say I just multiplied this thing, you can actually see your polygon layout right over thing, and you can go ahead and paint it away right in Photoshop if you prefer to work in Photoshop. This is a thick thing. You can do a thinner brush, and you can paint eyebrows, or you can use all the Photoshop painting tools inside of Photoshop in order to paint your maps. Okay, so let's actually revert this file. And let's go on now. So we've done the head, and you can look at the last thing, but now let's talk about techniques to texture the rest of his body. Okay, so we'll hide the lines here. Now, the thing is that to get since we're using Redshift, you'll probably want to bring up your Redshift render view stuff, and we have some lights here which I turn off and on. If I turn the lights on as well as the set, you'll get the lighting, which is an HDRI in this dome light, okay, and which I think I've shown you before. And in case I didn't show you, let me hide the set. The dome light looks something like, let me go to the standard layout. Get my Redshift render view. The dome light looks something, if I go to the dome light here and if I show the background, okay, it's just an HDRI image of something that looks like this, okay, and it's lighting up the scene. For those of you who don't know what HDRIs are there a spherical map that was captured of different places? It could be a garage, it could be you know, a landscape, and it's actually used to light the scene. Okay, actually it's lighting the scene, but since this edge of the character was getting a little bit dark, by the way, I can hide this HDRI by just simply in the settings for this dome light. See, here's the HDRI right here, okay? And then in the setting for this dome light, I can, by the way, this HDRI is on disk. It's called Interior HDR, okay? And for those of you who are interested in what an HDR looks like in Photoshop in a 2D sense, it's actually kind of an interesting thing to see. We'll take a look at it really quickly. Okay, it looks like this. This is actually what the HDR looks like. It's a huge material that wraps around a sphere, but this is what it looks like when it's flattened. And actually, the thing about HDRs is they are, as you can see here, they're 32-bit images. You can see that 32 right there. So they have a lot of data when it comes to lighting built into them. And by wrapping them around a sphere, as we did here, okay, you can actually light the scene with the HDRI. And if you rotate the HDRI like this, see how I'm rotating it around? Then the light changes. Right now, he's sort of getting lit from the back. And then here he's getting lit from this side. And then here he's getting lit full on from the front. Okay, I kind of had it off to the side a little bit, maybe to here. Okay. So I'm going to hide this HDRI by clicking on the dome light and clicking where it says environment background off, okay? And this side got a little bit dark, so I added another light here, which kind of like lights it from the side, okay? And as you can see, this light is, yeah, there it is right there. It's just an area light, which comes from the side there. So by turning it on and off, we just get a little side lighting on it. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we are going to start texturing some of the different body parts. So let's start with the collar. Now, the thing about the collar is, first of all, I'm going to select the collar, and I'm going to click on this little button, which is going to solo the collar in the viewport. And there it is. And let's start to take a look at how we're going to actually do this. Get our collar looking. Now, so as you can see, by the way, what you see in the Redshift render view does not quite look like what you see in the viewport. So it's important. Sometimes what you can do is you can just take this and park it right there, and you could split your view between the workspace in Cinema 4D and the Redshift window. Okay, so now on disk, I have some different textures, and one of them is this wool texture, okay? And it comes with a lot of different things on it, okay? A lot of different elements to it. And this is how, if you ever get a texture or download a texture or buy a texture, you'll often find that there are different components to it. For example, there's the color, there's what's called the height, there's the normal, there's the roughness, and there's something else called an AO, which stands for Ambient Occlusion. So we're going to take a look at what that is as well. So we're going to start off by making a new texture. So we're going to click over here, and we're going to say materials. We're going to say new standard Redshift material. So that you can either do it with this little plus button right here, materials, standard material, okay? And if you do that, you will create a Redshift standard material. If you wanted to create, by the way, that Cinema 4D legacy material, you would click this and you would say new default material. You can see what the difference is between those two. The Redshift one starts with an RS. The Cinema 4D legacy one just says matte, okay? You can also do it here in this create menu under materials, new standard material. Over here, actually this is a little confusing because if you say new standard material over here, it creates the matte, but if you go under Redshift material standard, it creates the Redshift. So anyway, it gets a little, that's a little bit confusing, but the important thing you understand is that in our render settings, we set the renderer to Redshift. So right now, this thing is being tuned for Redshift render. So that's why it does that. So now we've got this Redshift standard material. Let's open it up so we can actually see the nodes, okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to start bringing in the nodes from this wool material. So we could either create a new texture node from this little plus over here, okay, by hitting plus and we type in texture, and then we double click this and you create a new texture node right here. But the easier way to do it is we can just simply take the texture that we want to bring in and we could just click it and drag it right in. It creates a new texture node and it has the texture inside of it. So we don't have to go in here and find the texture. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this right now and we're going to plug that right into the color of the material, okay? And this is what the final output's going to be. And what we're going to do is we're going to take this, let's actually name it collar, RS collar, right? And what we're going to do is we're going to take that and we're going to drag it right onto our collar. So as you can see, there's a few things happening. First of all, the texture is too big, really, for a woolen type of a texture, okay? It's also shiny, so there's a lot wrong with it. So now what we're going to do is how do you make this thing smaller? Before we start adding, well, actually, let's start adding those other, even though it's too big right now, let's start adding those other components of this material, okay? So let's go ahead over here to this thing over here. And let's add, for example, we're going to add what's called a height map. Height map is also known as a bump map, okay? So if we drag that in, it's a grayscale map, okay? And what it does is that it will use these levels of gray to perturb the normals of the surface to look like if it's bumpy, okay? So let's say what happens now, unfortunately, we just can't take this and we just can't plug it right into the bump map. We need to have another node in there first before we can use it to create the bumpiness. And the way that we do that, okay, is that we can type this over here and we can type in bump. Oops. And then we can see that there's this thing that's called a bump map node. Oops. So what we need to do is we need to plug this in first, and then we need to go out from here into the bump map. And as soon as we do that, we'll notice now, by the way, on the bump map node, you have a few things. You have your, you want to, if it's a grayscale map, you want to use this height field. It is a grayscale map, so we're using height field. And then there's the scale right here. So if you want to see what it looks like, okay, you can see that it's a little bit hard to actually see what this is doing. But let's zoom in here. But you can see that it is sort of bumpy. It's making it bumpy like that. Let's actually, and if you up the height of it, it would get more bumpy like that. So you can see that the bump is working. Of course, it's too shiny. So we'll leave it at 1 for now. Now, actually, this material comes with a bump and something else, okay? It's called a normal map, okay? And the normal map, if I double click this, okay, this is what it looks like. It also has bump information. Now, sometimes you'll only have a bump map, and sometimes you'll only have a normal map, and sometimes you'll have both, okay? So what happens is that a lot of times when you have both is that they're both used together. And in this case, in this material, they are both used together. And sometimes what people do is they use the bump map to control, you know, kind of big bumps, and they use the normal maps to control very fine details, because normal maps are like bump maps, but it uses RGB values rather than just one luminance value. So there's more information to tell the normals of the surface how to actually be perturbed in a normal map than there is in a bump map. But sometimes you'll get both. If you only have one, just use the bump map. If you only have a normal map, then use the normal map, okay? And if you have two, I'm gonna show you how to use two right now, okay? So what I'm going to do is I am going to, that's a funny rune. And let me just see, was there any questions, Elly, here?
Not really, no. So there was actually there was a question quickly before when you were sort of painting your texture. If you paint in Photoshop, do you have to replace the image each time, or does it update automatically? Was a question earlier from Miles.
Yeah, so it'll update automatically. But if it doesn't, if you just open up like a texture here, right? If I click on this texture, I can just hit this reload image, and then it will reload it. If you ever have a problem, just click this, and then it reloads it back into the memory. So, but it depends. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. But this will always fix that. So anyway, so what we're going to do, let's get back into the texture here. Okay, so let's drag in the normal map, okay, over here like that. All right, and now we've got the normal map in here. And once again, we're going to need another bump map texture, okay? So, I mean, a bump map node, so we're gonna drag this down and use that. We're gonna pipe the normal map into there, but this time in this bump map node, rather than using a height field, okay, we're going to tell it that we want a tangent space normal map, okay? And the thing is that now you might be asking, so that's what you want. Now, by the way, if you look at the name of this normal map, okay, on disk, let's look at it on disk. It says Fabric 08 normal map OpenGL. And a lot of times you'll see normal maps listed. They'll give you two normal maps. One will say OpenGL and one will say DirectX. And the thing is that different 3D applications use different kinds of normal maps, okay? Cinema 4D uses OpenGL. So you should check, you could go online and you could check, you know, what normal map is being used for your application. But always in Cinema 4D, use OpenGL. Okay. So the thing is that now that we've fixed that, now the thing is that, wait a second, well, if I were just to drag this into here, okay, like this, well, like this, right? Then it's going to use the normal map, okay? And you can see that, you can see how, like, for example, things have changed a little bit. It looks a little bit, it's a finer level of detail on the normal map. So it actually makes it look something like that, okay? But the thing is that how do you actually get both of them going, okay? Because you don't want one or the other, you want both of them, okay? And does anybody know how to combine the normal and the bump map?
I'm just waiting. Here we go. Room says bump blender.
Very good. Yeah.
I tried my hardest not to answer myself.
Right. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna go bump blender. Okay, so we get a bump blender node. Okay, so we want to take this into the input over here, and we're going to take this into the bump input too. Okay, and then what you get, and then we're going to pipe this into here. Okay, first, so we've got the two going into a bump blender, and then from the two, what you can do is you can blend, like let's say we'll blend this, blends between the two. Okay, so you can see already that you're having the two being, you know, done. And if you want, you can always go back in here to the bump map and, you know, give it more of a bump, more for the bump map. You know, you give it more for the bump map, does more on that one, or you give it more for the normal map. We're just going to leave them both on 0. But there's another map here that it comes with. Okay, and it comes with the roughness map. Okay, so the roughness map is basically going to tell it what kind of, you know, reflection you want, because you don't want shiny wool like this. And the lighter it goes on the reflection, the less shiny, and the more darker it goes, the more shiny. So we're just going to pipe that into the roughness map, right? Which makes it really like a lot less shiny. Okay. If you want to control that, you can put a ramp in between and control, you know, the levels of how dark the dark gets, how light the light gets, if you want to get a custom thing. But we're just going to go for what they gave us. But you know, so it's up to you and your own artistic feeling of how you want to go ahead and you know, fix it, right? And by the way, I forgot to mention that if I click on the color and I go to the UV edit, I already had UV'd this. We looked at this quickly last week. So the UVs, I mean the polygons are already set up. Okay, so that's why it's working. Otherwise, it wouldn't be working. Okay, so let's go back here. Let's bring back our Redshift render view. And I'll leave it undocked for the moment. Okay, so where were we? Okay, so basically, yeah, so then there we have it. So did I miss any? Oh yeah, there's one other one that you're gonna miss sometimes. It's called the AO pass. So what is ambient occlusion? Okay. So ambient occlusion is basically when it's kind of like shadows, but it's not really shadows. It's, you know, when things get closer to each other, okay, they occlude the light. Which is kind of like you could think of maybe what a shadow is, but they're different from shadows. It's kind of like, you know, if you were to look at like on a diffused light day, if you were to look at like a car and you look under the car, it's dark under the car. It's kind of like a shadow, but there's no direct sunlight, right? So it's not really a shadow, it's just occlusion. It's the occlusion of light. That's what ambient occlusion is. And that's, I guess it's kind of happens with ambient light too. So it's like, that's what it is. So basically, if I were to look at this ambient occlusion pass, it just kind of looks like this. It kind of darkens areas of the map. Okay, it's not, there's no real light source, just that where the shapes get closer together, it gets darker. That's what you can think of what ambient occlusion is. So we're going to drag in the ambient occlusion pass. Okay, we'll leave this up so you can take a look at what that is. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to take the ambient occlusion pass, we're going to drag that in. Okay, now what we can do is we can actually use a composite node and multiply this on top of it. But the thing is that we don't have to, because texture nodes have built into them something, because the ambient occlusion maps are used all the time when it comes to texturing. It really brings the detail out of something, especially when there's a lot of detail. So what you can do is you can drag this in, and you could drag it in under adjust. There's a color multiplier input. which automatically takes this image and it multiplies it over the image. Now, it would be nice if we could like control, oh, maybe we can actually. Yeah, actually, you can actually control the amount of multiplication that's happening here. Is it here? Well, there's probably some way to do it. Alpha is luminance. There is no alpha. So you would have to use an alpha to fix it. But right now, we'll just leave it at its default. It's multiplying over the color. And what it really does is it just makes it darker. Okay. So the thing is that it's actually very useful and it's used a lot. You get an AO pass in a lot of materials, and like when it comes to rocks or rocky surfaces, you put that AO pass on there and it just really brings it to life. So you drag it right into the color multiplier input into the fabric. So right now we've got basically our texture set up for the fabric. Okay, it's got all of these components on it. Okay, now there's a couple of things. First of all, I want to scale down this texture because it's obviously way too big. And so there's several ways I could do that. By the way, you can see that we had put the seam in the back. So you can see the seam right there. That's how we cut the, we can see also a seam on the inside. So if we were to look at the object, you would see a seam. You would see a seam, you know, on the back, and there would have been a seam around this edge, and then a seam in the back like that, and then that's how it's cutting the UVs. But so one way that we're going to use, and this is fine for this material, but we're going to see later why we don't want to scale things all the time with this. But we could just sort of go to the collar, click it here, and right here we can just say, for example, like 50% smaller. Okay, and now we've got it like it's 50% smaller, but that's still too big. So let's go half of that to like 25%, you know, and that's kind of pretty cool. Okay, let's just leave it at 25% for now. Now, what it is that there are no, I also want to rotate this material because it's like, I don't want it horizontal and flat like this. I want to go ahead and I want to go ahead and I want to have it go vertical. Okay. Now, there's actually a few ways to do this too. Each of them are useful in different scenarios. Okay. And the question becomes is that one easy way, can anybody guess an easy way that I can get these materials? Because you notice there's no rotate materials here. See, you can't sort of rotate. There's length U, length V, but there's no rotate it here. So does anybody, the thing is, if you know, for example, how I can rotate, an easy way for me to rotate this material on this surface? Ellie?
I'm just keeping an eye on, turn it on the UV or transform texture from Miles.
Miles gets a gold star. Definitely Miles gets extra credit for that one. If we go to the UV, we take a look at our UV. By the way, you notice that the UV is actually smaller here, and that's simply because we made this smaller over here, okay? But that's okay, we don't care. If I select all the polygons here, and I go UV transform, and I just do it 90 degrees, and so I rotate the UVs, okay? Now if I go into the standard way, you can see, boom, we have, you know, our texture kind of, you know, set up nicely in our setup, okay? So that's what we're going to do for the collar. So now let's just keep on moving to different parts of the character to see what else we're going to do. Let's actually work on the shirt or the sweater next, okay? So let's actually go ahead and we're going to go ahead and we're going to take a look at our UVs on this shirt. So we're going to take a look on the shirt. We're going to go to UV edit. And big problem here. Okay, so obviously if we were to try to put any sort of texture on here, for the heck of it, we'll just go ahead and put a texture on here just for an experiment. So we'll put this over here to the shirt. And you can see, well, it's a big problem. First of all, it's kind of like, it's all messed up. And sometimes it could be even worse than this, depending on what happened to your UV. So this is not obviously what we want. So let's try to figure out how we're going to UV map this thing. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go, let's say, to a front view, okay, and go to the polygon mode, select all the polygons, and I'm just going to do a frontal projection, okay? And now we have to figure out how we're going to cut the seams, okay, in our shirt. So one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off the lights, because as soon as I turn off all the lights, I'll just get Cinema 4D's default lighting, kind of a little bit easier to work with this lighting here. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut some seams. So first of all, I want to cut the sleeves away from the body. Okay, so we'll cut that here and here. Okay, and so now let's UV unwrap this. So what it did is it cut the sleeves away from the body. So that's pretty cool, but these are terrible UVs still. You know, if I were to try to UV, drag the UVs on it now, okay, it would look probably even worse than before. Okay, really messed up. Okay, so now the thing is that let's figure out where we can put some more seams to cut this nicely. So actually, I'm gonna solo this. Okay, so let's actually cut a seam down the edge, because I want my seams to be on the edges of the shirt. Okay, like that. And like this, you know, like that. You can think of it using like scissors, okay? So now let's UV this, UV unwrap this. So that's already got me a good front and a good back, okay? That's kind of useful already for there, okay? So now the thing is that, but the arms are all messed up. So for the arms, let's actually drag, if you double click on an edge, it'll select that whole edge. So we'll do that, we'll double click on this one. Okay, and now we'll UV unwrap it. And now we've got the arms and the front and the back. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select on this one of these things, and I'm just going to say align UV islands. That'll sort of make it straight. And then I could click on this one, align UV islands. That'll make it straight. And what I'm going to do is what's going to help me a little bit later. You don't have to do this actually. You could just paint on it like this, but it might be more helpful if I take these lines and if I say UV straighten, okay? And then if I take these lines, if I say UV straighten and so on and so forth, this is actually going to help in some cases, not in all cases, but in some cases. So you could do this if you want, or sometimes you don't have to. So let's UV straighten these. Okay, oops. Okay, almost there. Got one more here to do. Okay, so there we have that. And these are already pretty straight, so I don't have to worry about those. Okay, and now the thing is that in UV packing, if you do geometric and you hit equalize island size and you just click like apply, what it does, well, first of all, it kind of arranges it on yours, which may or may not be useful to you. But what it also does is it makes things sort of like relatively the same size to each other, which is useful because, especially when you're doing some painting and stuff like that, makes things relatively the same size. So the arms are now kind of the same proportion to the body. Now, the thing is that, so now we have that. So actually, let's just try to drag our thing onto it now and see what happens. So we drag it onto our shirt. So now this is cool, but what's happening is that, first of all, it's kind of like going this way on the back, I guess, and then down on the front, and then also it's mismatched on the arms. So the thing is that I actually like it the way that it is on this one. I want them to have them come down. I don't know really the way shirts are woven. Maybe they are woven horizontally, but I want to keep it having come down here. And then also I want them to come down on the arms, okay? So I'm gonna take this one here, go ahead and hit select connected here, okay? And I'm going to transform it 90 degrees. So, okay, that's good. That works. Let me move it away just temporarily. Maybe I'll do that. I think it's UW. Oh no, whoops. Select connected is, yeah, UW. Okay. Well, let's actually just select them like this. And let's move this away. Or actually, let's just move this to here. And which is the right arm? I guess this is the way I want it to be. So we want to take these actually and just, you just double click in it and just apply. Actually, you can have it upside down, doesn't really matter. So we'll have these kind of like that. Maybe we'll offset it a little bit to get a little bit more room. And then this one will be sort of like that. And then this one will be sort of like this. And then there we have it. We've actually UV'd the sweater the way we want it to look. Okay. So now, here's the thing. The thing is that like before, I'm going to actually go to the standard layout, but like before, what's happening is that this texture is too big on this shirt. Okay. So, however, this time I don't want to click here and make it smaller over here. Okay. And the reason that I don't will become evident in a bit. Okay. So, because what I want to do is I want to make a pattern on this shirt. Okay. I want to make kind of like one stripe, kind of a zigzag stripe in the middle of the shirt. Okay. So the thing is that how would I actually do that? Well, actually, what I want to do is I'm going to control it with a map. So let's quickly go ahead and actually make a new default material. Remember that? Okay, this is the Cinema 4D one. Double click it. Okay, and in the color, I don't need the reflectance. In the color, I'm going to say create new texture. Okay, and oh, I guess I could make it 1K texture because it doesn't have to be so high res. Okay, so I'll click OK with a white background. Okay, and now I'll go into my paint and also name this. I'll name it stripes or pattern stripe. Okay, and now I'll go into my paint menu and I will, let's take away this thing here. Okay, and let's go ahead and let's drag in this pattern stripe thing and click this little red X. And now if I take the brush tool Okay, I can start painting on this. Okay, so what I'm going to do, okay, and what I can do is I can show my Gouraud shading lines just to be able to, as a guide to help me paint. Okay, and if, let's say, for example, I paint with like a brush, maybe about 10 or 10 size brush, that's fine, right? So now the thing is that I want to paint some stripes on this thing, okay? So I'm gonna click there, maybe shift click right there. That'll be like a line across, okay? And then I'll sort of like paint here. Oops, so I hold down the shift key, okay? It draws like a straight line across. Now, you notice that it goes nice and straight across, and that was because I straightened out my UVs. Do you remember when I straightened out these UVs? Okay. Now, if I want to fill that in, I could either go here, okay, and I can start, you know, painting it right in here and sort of like filling in the parts that I want it painted for my map. Okay, this is going to be kind of like an alpha matte that I'm going to use. Okay, or I can actually go right here into the texture and you know, zoom in on an area like here, and I can start painting it in this mode if you prefer. Okay, it's up to you the way that you want to work. I can get a bigger brush, let's say a 20, right? And I can, you know, sort of like hold down the shift key, and maybe this will be a little faster to paint. Okay, and so now I have one of the stripes done. Okay, so we can see that one of the stripes is done. So now let's go back to the 10 brush, right? And let's say, for example, I want to paint another stripe maybe here. And then shift click there, that'll sort of come across the whole thing, okay? And then maybe go down to about here and here. Okay, and then once again, we'll maybe go to like a 20 brush. Let's go to a 25. Maybe make the hardness 50%. Okay, and then just fill that in like this. Oops. You can zoom in on it if you want, make things a little easier for you. Ah, okay. Never, you know, when you paint, never, always pick your mouse up. It's better to paint like this, because if you undo, you just undo a little bit. If you leave your mouse up and you're on your mouse like for hours, and at the very end you make a mistake and you undo, it undoes the whole thing. So that's why it's kind of better to paint in little dabs than it is to paint, try to do everything with one stroke. Okay, little pearl of wisdom for you there. So the thing is, so okay, we got that. Now the thing is, I want to go for like a smaller brush. Maybe we'll go to like a 5, right? And I want to basically kind of like create kind of like, oops, maybe with the shift key down, kind of like a zigzag pattern. Okay, like there. I'm not going to be perfect because this is like just a demo, but you know, there's always you can sort of spend your time doing it better if you want. And then we'll do like another, you know, one over here, let's say, for this. We'll start here. Oops. You have to be careful because if you click over here and then you shift click to here, it doesn't really work. Or if you click over here, you shift click to there. Well, that kind of worked actually, come to think of it. But we're gonna just keep going here. Okay, so now you have like the zigzag pattern, and now what you can do is you can go to this part here. If you want, you can try to like, you know, close this up here and then sort of close this up on the bottom here. Okay. And then you can take, in the gradient tool, there's a fill tool. Maybe you can up the tolerance a little bit and then click in the middle there, and it does a pretty good job of filling it up. But you might want to like, you know, hit it up with like a little brush to get the parts that you missed. But it's still faster this way. Or you could have tried to increase the tolerance. You know, you probably could have done it if you increased the tolerance to a bigger size. But if you want to make sure that you did it right, you could sort of do it like this. Like that. Oops. The tolerance way would have been faster. See, I'm doing the shift straight line thing. I'm also going to come out to the edge here. You can be sloppy if you go over the polygons. It doesn't matter because it's going to be cut off at the edge of the polygon. Okay, so now the thing is that that's fine, okay? And you actually need to do it on the back too. I might not do it on the back for the sake of time for the class, but you probably would need, but you would need to do it for the back. Although I'd like to do it for the back because it would look cool, but you could use your imagination. Now for the arms, I'm going to like basically go over here. I'm going to just use this tool. The what is this tool? This is the lasso tool. Okay, and I'm going to hold down the shift key. And I'm just going to make some stripes. Okay, for where I want the, because I want some stripes to be on the arm. Maybe the 3 here, and then we'll do 3 here. 1. You know, here's a chance, a place where we won't want to use the UV straighten. You can always go back and do that. You can always go back to the UV edit, okay, and then do it. But I won't bother actually right now because we're in the middle of doing something. So the thing is that let's just do our thing. This one, and this one, okay? And now if I just go over here under the edit menu, I can say, I'm sorry, under the, the edit menu here. It's 2 edit menus, this edit menu, fill layer, but you need a black color. You go edit, fill layer, and that'll fill it with some stripes. So basically, if I go back to my view, you'll see that I've painted something that looks like this. And like I said, you would do it in the back too. So it would go all through around. So what happens is that what I want to do is I want to use this map to create, I want to create a version, I want to create one sort of like woolen texture. And then, for example, you know, then have a different woolen texture in here, kind of like a 2-tone approach, okay? So how would I do that? Okay, so first of all, what I want to do is under my layers, I can actually just go ahead and like right click on this texture, and I could say save texture as. Please choose the file format. Right, if I hit save, by the way, I could also just save it there too, but we're going to save it as PNG. okay? This is a good way because actually you can choose the file format. Otherwise, it just saves as an uncompressed TIFF, which is bigger. So if I go OK, tell me where I want to save it, and I'm going to save it in this text file. I actually have some in here from before, but I'm going to call it stripe pattern 4. Okay, so we're going to click save. Okay, and now let's go ahead and let's delete it from our shirt. Okay, so now we're back to no textures on the shirt. We have this stripe pattern saved somewhere. We can get rid of this texture if we want, but we'll leave it just in case we ever want to paint on it again. Okay, although you could always set one up and bring it in and paint on it too. It doesn't matter. So now we're going to go to the standard layout, right? We're going to go into our whatchamacallit, our textures, okay? And we're going to go ahead and I'm going to take the collar material. I'm going to hold down the control key and copy it, okay? So I've made a copy of that collar right here, okay? And I'm going to call it shirt or sweater, RS sweater, okay? So now I'm going to double click on this, okay? And we have this texture here that we created for the collar, remember? Okay, but now what I want to do is I want to take all of these nodes and copy them. So I've just duplicated all of those nodes. Okay. And on this node, I'm going to, on this group of nodes, on this fabric, on this coming out, I'm going to put a new node here. It's going to be called the color correct node. Okay. And here it is. Okay. And I'm going to pipe this into the input from the color, which has the AO pass in it, by the way. And I'm going to pipe that into the color node, okay? And then on this one, I'm just going to slightly lower the gamma. Lower the gamma maybe to 0.8. That's going to lower that. And I'm going to lower the levels maybe to about there. Okay, just going to be a little bit darker. And fool around with some of the others. No, I don't want that one. If you want, you can change the hue shift and make it a totally different color. You want to have it purple and you know, whatever, or if you want to have it orange and blue, that might look cool actually. Why don't we make it orange and blue? Let's try it. Okay, we'll make it a little bit more around to 180, a little bit less, right there. And or maybe we won't. Maybe we'll just make it 2 pattern blue. Okay, and then maybe I'll change the saturation down because it looks a little saturated. Okay, so there you have it. Those are our 2 shades of blue. Okay, and now what I'll do is I'm going to, let me remove this wire. Okay, so I've got the color coming out from here and the color coming out from here. Okay, so does anybody know how I can combine these two materials together? Material blender node, right? Is that what they said?
Yeah, I was just having a look. Yeah, from burned material blender node.
Okay, very good. Burned said that?
Yeah.
Very good, Burned. Gold star. So we get what's called a material blender node. Okay, so we're going to bring that in there. Okay, we're going to bring in this color into the base color, this color into the material color, layer 1 color. And now here's the thing, how do I actually control it with a map? Because right now the way that it's controlled is that it's just going to blend between the two but we want to have actually a map control it. So let's actually go to the map that we made, okay? And we're going to, where is it? Where did I save it to? Here it is, okay? So we're gonna take that, we're gonna drag it in, okay? And we're going to put this into the blend color here, okay? And then if we take a look at it in our Redshift, oh, first of all, we've got to drag it onto the sweater. And as you can see in the Cinema 4D viewport, you don't really see anything, okay? But the thing is that, but we're not ready yet, okay? Because we don't want to, because it's too big, okay? But you can't see it here. You're only going to be able to see it in the render view. So the thing is that it's too big here. So the thing is that we don't want to control this thing over here, okay? Because if we control it over here and we make it smaller over here, it does make it smaller on the thing, okay? You see that? It does make it smaller, but I'll try to render it so you can see the difference. Okay, so if I were to hit play here, see, it actually also changes the the map, and we don't want to make the map smaller, so it's messed up here, okay? So what we're going to do is we want to have a way to control the size from in here of certain things and not how to you know, do it with that things. And the way to do it is it's with something called a vector maker. So if we choose a vector maker node, okay? What's happening is that the vector maker node is a very simple node. It just has 3 values in it, X, Y, and Z, okay? And I'm gonna set those X, Ys, and Zs to 1 because we're gonna deal with scale. So 1 means 100%. If we start out with 0, it's gonna scale it down tiny and it's gonna look completely wrong. So we're gonna start it with 1. What we're going to do is we're going to drag this in to the scale of every texture that's being used. Here. Here. Actually, we got to drag it into here too, because that was the AO map, and we don't want just the AO map. We want that one too. So we want that one. We want this one. Okay, and we want this one. Okay, and we want this one. Bump map and normal map. Okay, did I get them all? I guess, right? So now this is going to control the scale of all of those maps, but it's not going to control the scale of this map because we don't want to control the scale of this map. Okay, so this is where you would do it and not in the other way that I showed you. So now in this one, the way that it works actually is that unlike
Joe,
what you might...
quickly.
Yes.
Just quick. We've had a few comments in the chat. I think you may have
Okay.
forgotten the roughness
Oh, did I?
map.
Yeah, you're right. I did forget the roughness. Thank you.
Thanks to Ben and Gert.
Thank you, Burned, and who?
Gert,
Gert.
Geert. I'm so sorry if I'm saying that wrong.
Okay. Thank you, guys. And you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. It has to go through all of those. Now, all of those scales can be controlled by this thing right here. Okay. So now the way that it works, contrary to a little bit of what you're expecting, is that the higher we go, the more it's going to scale. So if I hit 2, actually, we might only be able to see this in the Redshift mode. And yeah, so if we go to like 5, okay, we'll see that sometimes it takes a little while to do it. Actually, I found that 8 was good. Now there's one other problem, is that I didn't want the light color to be in the pattern. I wanted the dark color to be in the pattern, and I wanted the light color. Oh my God, I missed one. I must have missed one because one of them is really big. So which one did I miss? This one. No, I got that one. Scale. Oh, this one.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think it's the
AI.
one you would
I mean the
hovering over.
The AI,
Yeah.
where we were talking about AI these days. Okay. Okay, I missed one. So anyway, let's see. So now that's fine. Okay, so now the thing is that I didn't want to have it light here and dark here. So what I'm just going to do is I'm simply going to open up what's called an invert node. Okay, actually a color invert node. So if I take that, drag that in there, and if I drag this texture into that and into here, okay, then what happens is that it will invert it, and then that's sort of the way that I wanted it to look, okay, on my character. Oh my goodness, I'm actually on the back of him. I don't want to be on the back of him. I chose the wrong one, actually. Okay, I chose the wrong one. So, you know, I'm going to do it rough and ready. This is not really the way you're supposed to do it. But what I'm going to do is that I don't care. Let me go ahead to the, so how would I fix that? So actually, let me go back to this thing. Sure, all right, here we go. So I guess I could just do it this way. If they're identical, it's not a problem. But I don't know if they look almost identical here, actually. So I don't think this is going to be a problem at all, really. But if I just, oops, if I just copy and paste this and just move it over to this side, well, it's not quite the same. Okay, so I guess I would transform it like this. Like that. It's not ideal because they're not identical. By the way, if they were identical, you could stack them on top of each other. Have the polygons go on top of each other, and then what will happen is that the pattern would be exactly repeated on both sides, and you'd save a lot of time when painting it. Okay, so let's do that. Okay, transform the layer. Okay, and then let's, if I just hit save, it says, do you want to save changes to the texture? So I'll say yes. That should just do it. Okay, if we go now back to the standard layout, there it is, just automatically came in, and it's not lining up perfectly because they're not identical. Okay, but I don't care because next time, lesson learned, next time when you're painting, okay, make sure that, or when you're UV editing, okay, make sure that you click on a thing, and this would have told me it's the bottom one. Okay, just click on a polygon. This would have told me you're painting on the bottom one because I painted on this one. Because I made the mistake by, I had this like that. I was soloing the viewport. See, if you solo the viewport, it's on a shape like this, if it's the head, you know what's the back of the head. But on a shape like this, you don't know what is the back or the front. But anyway, if I were to go like that, and if I were to do it now, okay, you'll see that, oh, okay, let me get rid of this thing over here. And there it is. So now that's sort of what I wanted it to look like. Okay, So, any questions so far?
Yeah, so there have been a couple. So when our renderer produces AO already, why do we need an AO map from Syed or Syed?
Oh, because it's not going to produce AO on a flat surface. See, like for example, actually it might on a displaced surface. Okay, it's going to do it on a displaced surface, but not on a flat surface. So the thing is that the way the renderer looks at the surface of like this sweater right here is that to the map, to the renderer, this surface is completely flat. Even if I zoom in, whoops, way close on this edge, I'm just gonna keep zooming in and zooming in. It's completely flat, okay? Because normal maps and bump maps don't displace the geometry, they just displace the normals. So the renderer will not know to create AO here, and it won't create AO. That's why we multiply it onto the color channel.
Cool, thanks. Andrew was wondering, what if you don't have enough UV space to fit everything on how you want it to look?
Okay, so if you don't have enough UV space, right? Like right now we had enough here, but let's say we didn't have enough UV space. You could just simply select all the UVs, okay? Take the scale tool and scale them up or down as you need them. You know, before you start mapping, of course. So you just make it a little bit smaller, then you'll have enough space.
Cool, and the final one, I've been answering a few in the background, is from Trish. Wondering, where did you download your fabric materials from? Do you have any good resources
I
that
found
you
it
use?
somewhere online. If you just click wool texture, I think I just found it. Another good place to download materials, which actually the next material I downloaded from a place called Polyhaven. That's actually a place where you can download materials as well. There's actually a bunch
Yeah,
of
I
stuff.
also,
Yeah.
I was going to say I dropped a few in there, which is Ambient CG, CG Bookcase,
Yeah.
Polygon, and then of course Cinema 4D's asset browser.
Yeah. 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 Don't forget the asset browser. There's a lot of great
Yeah,
materials in there.
new stuff every month as well. So
Oh, cool. So actually,
mm.
let's take a look, like for example, let's take a look next on the belt. Okay, so as you can see, we've got another material here. Okay, it's actually called leather. Okay, so what do we have in leather? Well, we got a color map, we've got a normal map, we've got a roughness map. We don't have any height map. Okay, so it just has a normal map, but we have something new here. It's called a displacement map. Okay, so now displacement is an interesting topic, okay? Because what displacement does is it actually displaces the geometry, not just the surface, okay? So the thing is that not just the normals, it actually displaces the geometry. So how would we set this up? Well, let's quickly go ahead. We're gonna click on the belt, okay? And what we'll do is we'll solo that. Okay, so now we just have the belt soloed. Okay, first of all, let's take a look at its UVs. Completely horrible. Okay, completely unusable. So what we're going to do is we'll go for like a projection. You don't have to go for a frontal projection. You could do a perspective projection. I'm just used to doing frontal projections, kind of a habit of mine. Okay, we're going to select these. We're going to go projection, frontal projection. Okay, we're going to go ahead. We're going to choose by the way, the other way to know whether you're always looking at the front or the back of your model is to keep an eye on the Z axis, okay? And if the Z axis is pointing backwards, okay, then what's happening is that you know that you're looking at the front of your model, okay? So if it's looking like this, then you think you're on the front of your model, but you're actually on the back of your model. So that's the way to really tell. So the thing is that what we're going to do is we're going to go to the edge mode, okay? And we're going to we're going to select a seam there, and that's the seam we're going to use to cut, okay, this thing, okay? And we're just simply going to say UV unwrap, and there it is. Okay, we've just UV unwrapped the belt. And then I'm going to click on the polygons here, go to polygon, and we're just going to say UV rectangularize, and that's going to make it nice and square, okay? And now we're ready to start mapping this belt, okay? So let's zoom in a little bit on the belt, okay? And let's go ahead, just going to start out with a new, let's go to the standard layout, okay? Let's go back to the, you know, I kind of wish that the render view wouldn't disappear every time you changed the view modes, but it's not a big deal. It's fine. So anyway, the thing is that there we have it. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to create a new material. Okay, we're going to create a new standard material, Redshift standard material. We can name it belt if we want, right? And we'll open it up. Okay, we'll go back to the thing. We'll drag in the albedo, which is just another word of saying color. We'll drag in our displacement map. We'll drag in our normal map. Okay, by the way, the normal map looks like this. See it? Looks kind of like a leather texture. Okay, and we'll drag in our roughness map. Okay. So those are the maps we're going to need. We'll take the albedo, we'll bring it into the color, okay? And we'll already drag this belt texture onto the belt. You can already see a little bit of what it looks like here. Okay, oops. That's what the color looks like already. All right, and now we'll bring in our normal map. So we'll bring in our bump node. Okay, bump node. Okay, and we'll pipe this into here. Oops. Pipe that back into the bump map, but we want to change this map from being a height field to a normal map. Okay, and as you can see, it already is doing something there. Okay, and then that might be too much, so you can always remember you can come down on it, come way down. If you bring it down to 0, it won't have any effect. Okay, so we'll bring it to like 0.5. Okay, and then we've got now in this case, by the way, there is no AO map. They just didn't include one. No problem. We don't need it. You don't always need an AO map. Okay. So, you know, it depends when it's up to you whether what you want to use an AO map or you don't. Okay. So now the thing is that now here and then so you can see, okay, now we're going to talk about the displacement map. Okay, now things get a little bit weird because the thing is that if let's say I'm going to leave the normal map to 1. Okay, so it's a pretty pronounced normal map, right? So for example, if I go, but still, if I go to the edge, you can see it's as flat as it can be. Okay, because that's how the normal map works. It just works on the normals. That's why it's called a normal map. It's not because it just acts like everybody else. So now the thing is that what we're going to do is we are going to check out what this displacement map is all about, okay? So the thing about the displacement map is it doesn't go into the material, it gets plugged into the output, okay? And you can see there's something here called displacement. And just like the bump map, before you place it into the displacement map, you need to get a special, what's called a displacement node, okay? So you want to go in first to the displacement node and you want to bring it into the text map of the displacement node. And then you want to plug this into, as a matter of fact, I'm going to mute the bump map for a second. and nothing happens. I wonder why nothing happened there. Let's just delete this wire. Oops. Well, that's odd. Did you just see that? Oh, okay. Well, it's probably because I just need to resend this to the renderer. There
I was going to say, yeah, if you just refresh the render view sometimes.
Okay. So anyway, the thing is that let's just get rid of the normal map so we can see what the displacement map does. So we're going to plug this into the displacement of the output, material output, and look what it does. Nothing. Okay. So why isn't it doing anything? Okay. So, so the thing is that what we're going to do is we are going to go ahead and we are going to get in here, and the reason is that we have to right click on the belt, okay, and we're going to have to give it what's called a rigging tag, and for some reason it's coming out on the other side of my, isn't that odd? Coming out on my other screen, so I'm just going to rip it off. Well, how do I rip it off here? Rigging tags. There it is. Okay. It came off on my other screen when I did it, but so I just ripped it off and brought it here. I'm going to give it what's called a, where is it? I don't see it. No, it's not in rigging tags. I'm sorry. It's in rendering tags, render tags. Rendering tags. There it is. Okay. So it's called an RS object tag. Okay. So I'm going to give that RS object tag. Okay. And what that RS, and once in that RS object tag, you have to override the geometry, enable tessellation, and then enable displacement. Okay. Once you do that, okay, look what happened to our thing. Kind of looks like the normal map, okay, but it kind of doesn't. And the reason it doesn't is because if I were to zoom in on the edge of it, like right here, if I zoom in the edge of it, you can see that the actual geometry is being displaced. Now, if you want it to be displaced more, or have a finer mesh level, okay, the thing is that you could actually play with this number, minimum edge length and maximum subdivisions. Okay, that will give you like, but that's actually going to slow you down a little bit too. But if I went to 7 here, okay, actually you don't really see much of a difference. So the thing is that maybe, but you could fool around with that. Maybe there's just not enough information in the map that you don't notice anything but above that. But the important thing to understand about displacement is that it's actually like if you modeled it, it's actual displacement. Okay. Now, if you're far away from something, like if you know, you're not really going to notice a difference between a normal map that much and a displacement map. Okay. Now, the thing about this displacement map is that it's too much. I mean, there's too much going on, and the way that you can control it is with this displacement scale. So we'll go down to like 0.5. And that's better, okay? So maybe we'll go to like 0.3, you know, that, and then we'll bring back our normal map. Might have to send it to the renderer again. Oh, it came through, okay. And what's happening is that, you know, you could fool around with these amounts till you get whatever. This is just, you know, something that I picked up off the web, but that might be too much of a texture for leather. It kind of is in a way, okay, but maybe if you want a real textured leather, but you could just lower these amounts. Maybe we'll lower this down to 0.2 or 0.25 till you get the exact thing you want, okay? And then there's one more thing over here is the roughness map. We're going to bring the roughness map in here, okay, because we don't want it so shiny. It just picks up kind of like a little bit of the highlight on the edge there. You see this? See that? Looks a lot better. Still kind of rough, but I'll let you fool around, you know, you could decide what you want to do with that roughness. Okay, now if I uncheck that to get back the soloing and send this over here, okay. Okay, so there we have it. That's going to be kind of like our belt. Oops, I just lost everything. Now I'm in a, okay, there we go. Okay, so then you can see the belt texture. So now for the belt buckle, okay, we want to create kind of like a gold texture, okay? And to do the gold texture, how do you do a gold texture? Well, the easy way to do it is you can just create a new standard Redshift material, right? And the way that it works is that you don't even really need nodes, or actually you might need nodes later. So the thing is that what I'm going to do is I'm going to just choose a gold color. So first you go to the color, and I usually choose somewhere on the hue around 45 degrees. If you want a little bit of a warmer gold, you do it a little bit less towards the red and orange, a little bit more towards the yellow and green if you wanted a more yellowish gold, okay? And then we'll sort of drag this somewhere over here, okay? So right now it looks like plastic, okay? So how do you fix that? Well, it's really easy. All you do is you take the metalness slider and you just slide it up to 1, and then boom, you've got gold. Now this is a very shiny gold, okay? And I don't want a shiny gold. I want like a rough gold, like a burnished gold, okay? So I'm just gonna take the roughness and I'm gonna make it like maybe 0.6, okay? And then you can see that it's more like a, you know, rather than a shiny gold, we went to like kind of like a rough gold. And now I'm going to take this and I'm going to drag it onto my belt buckle. And if, oops, I would drag it onto my belt. That's pretty cool. That would be really heavy if it was solid gold. But if we go here to the belt, buckle is over here actually. Okay. So then now we have sort of like a nice gold for the thing, but that I don't want it to be so smooth, this gold, okay? I want it to be a little bit like burnished. And there's also something else I want to do. I want to take this buckle and I want to move it down a little bit, okay? Like maybe down to here a little bit, okay? And then what I want to do is I just want to go into over here. I want to create what's called a Maxon noise. Maxon noise. Okay, what noise do I want to do? Well, I want to create like, actually, a lot of them might work. I'll just try the displaced turbulence, okay? Or blistered turbulence, okay? And then if I were to, just to see what it would look like, I could drag it right onto the surface and notice that it will show you what it looks like, because it doesn't look like this. It looks more like this. And then I'm going to go ahead in the noise thing, okay? And I'm going to go down to here and I'm going to scale it down to like 0.125, okay? That's pretty good, but I even want it smaller to like 0.025, right? And then that's sort of what I'm looking for. And I will plug that into a bump node. Right? And we'll go ahead and we will plug this into the bump map. And then what's going to happen is that we'll plug this back into the output, okay? And it's too bumpy. So what we're going to do is we are going to go ahead and make this bump map. It's a height field. We're going to go ahead and bring it way, way, way down. So just there's a little, oh, that's negative, 0.025. So just so that there's a little, you can see a little texture on that gold, so it's not just perfect flat gold. Okay, and if you can control that however you see fit. So there's more texturing going to be thing, and maybe we might get back to it. Because we have another texture here, it's called the denim texture, and this really just comes with an albedo and a normal. The normal looks something like this, okay, which is like denim, and a roughness, okay. But let's and what you would just do is you would, you could map, let's take a look at our UV map for our pants. Okay, terrible, just ghastly. Where did the pants go? There it is. Okay, so once again we would need to UV map this. So what we would do is, let's actually turn off the lights. We would go ahead and we would we would need to cut some seams. And the way that I would cut my seams are, I would just cut it sort of like a seam along there, and then cut a seam along the back. Okay, and let's try to unwrap this and see what it does. And boom, there it is. I've already unwrapped the pants in a really nice way. I don't have to do anything else but that. And then what I can do is select sort of this over here, and I can say align UV islands, and then select all the polygons, and transform them. Actually, I might want to do that like this. And then, I'm ready to start putting the texture on and doing everything that I did with the sweater and all the other things. Any questions so far?
So I've actually been answering a couple in the background.
Oh, that's good.
One that I thought is like quite an interesting topic to talk about if we had sort of like maybe a minute. I have answered it, but I'd like to know your take. So Sayed was wondering, if I have to choose between normal and displacement, which one should I choose? Or in other words, why use displacement when I have normal? Which I think is a really interesting question.
Sometimes you get both. Just so you know that you might get a texture set with normal and displacement. And you don't have to, nothing's forcing you to use all of the ones you get, okay? But if you use displacement, you will get ambient occlusion generated, by the way, because it's actually displacing the geometry. And what happens is that sometimes if you use displacement with normal maps, you'll get the displacement, but you see displacement is based on the polygon density. The more dense the polygons, the better the displacement is going to use. Normal maps are not based on polygon density. Okay, so the thing is that you're going to have very low polygons there. The normal maps are still going to look finely detailed. So that, the thing is that that's sort of the difference between the two.
Cool. And Wesley wanted me to let you know that these sessions are incredibly useful, the stuff that we've needed to help transitioning from Maya, and to thank you when I get the chance. So this is me thanking you.
Thank you so much, Wesley. I really do appreciate that, and any and all comments. Thank you very, very much. Great. Glad to hear that you're finding it useful. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the hair now, because it'll probably get pushed a little bit, but you can see the texturing process is actually coming along. Let's talk a little bit about hair. So I actually, for the eyebrows, I decided to paint them on. Okay, but for the top of the hair, I want to use real hair. So the thing is that what I'm going to do is that the way that it works is that, let's go to the standard edit, okay? The way that it works is that I'm gonna choose some polygons to put my hair on. And so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to choose some polygons. So we're gonna choose maybe this polygon, this polygon, this polygon, this one. Be a little bit easier if I painted the polygons on. Okay, and then I'm gonna choose these polygons and there, and maybe I'll choose these as well. Okay, I'm just gonna put polygons onto this part of the character. So once I've got my polygon selected, here's my head. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to choose under the Simulate tab, okay? I'm going to choose Add Hair, okay? So a couple of things happen when I choose Add Hair. First of all, you'll notice that a polygon group, a selection group got selected there, okay? And the next thing you'll notice that will happen is that a hair object got created, okay? And the third thing that happened is that I got this thing called a hair mat. So three things happened right away. And the fourth thing that you might notice that might have happened is I got these like lines shooting out from his head, okay? So a bunch of things happened when I created hair, okay? Now, in the hair thing, under the polygon, so there's something called a link, and it's actually linking to this polygon selection. If I actually were to name this polygon selection, which is these polygons right here, if I were to name them like my hair, let's say. If I go to the hair thing, now it says my hair. So this is actually being linked to this hair. Okay. So now, first of all, what's happening is that these guides are like way too big, okay? Because these sort of like are an indication how long the hair is going to be. So these are like way too big. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to, oops, that's the amount. We're going to go to the length here and we're going to just start scaling them down. And we're going to scale them down to about, let's say 12. Okay, that's the first thing we're going to do. Now, if I were to go ahead, by the way, I can go ahead and in the viewport, where it says viewport here, I can say display hairlines. Now, that doesn't look very interesting, okay? It looks just like, kind of looks like a mohawk, but it looks like a very rectangular mohawk. Doesn't have a lot of visual interest, okay? Now, the first thing, yep. So the first thing is that this, so unless you're doing like a rectangular mohawk, you want to start changing this. So the first thing that I can do is let me bring up my Redshift window. So I'm going to say Redshift render view. And I'm going to play this, or I'm going to send this to the renderer. And you can see that the first problem that we have is we have that the hair is too thick. Okay, they're overlapping each other, especially at the end. They're kind of separating on the top, but at the end they're overlapping, okay? So the first thing I'm going to do, now the thickness of the hair can be controlled here in the hair mat, okay? Now this hair mat, by the way, is kind of a legacy thing and it's kind of not. So first thing, if I double click this, like the color and the specular and probably the transparent, you see here, all these top things here were based on the old legacy material system in Cinema 4D, okay? So if you're using Redshift, okay, you can ignore these, okay? But the rest of this stuff is actually very useful. So we're gonna click on the thickness right away, and at the root, instead of 1 centimeter, I'm gonna put 0.01 centimeters. And already the hair is actually a lot smaller and thinner, okay? And at the very top, maybe we'll make it a little bit smaller on the top. We'll say 0.075. Okay, so it gets a little thinner as it goes to the top. Okay, so let's start there. Okay, so let's actually, the other thing I want to do is right now in the hair, the amount of hairs that we're using is 50,000, and that's not bad, but I'm going to lower that for the heck of it. I will lower that to about 40,000 or maybe even 35,000. See what that looks like. Not much of a difference, but it'll speed things up actually. So the next thing that I want to do is I want to start grooming this hair. Okay. So actually I'm going to go back to the viewport. Let me go back to just the guidelines. Let me hide the set. Okay. And what I'm going to do is kind of go to a side view. Actually, why don't I go to a real side view? Maybe this view. Okay. And I'm going to hide the camera, or maybe I'll just go to the perspective view. Okay. And I'm going to go into what's called the Groom layout. Okay. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to the Groom layout, and now we have some grooming tools. Okay. So the thing is that if I were to choose the brush tool, for example, now the brush tool works in different ways. One way, this is actually going to brush things on the end of the hair. So for example, if I start grooming this hair back, just works on the end, and that's useful. There's other ones too. There's like this one. This one you could actually groom the hair in the middle, or this actually kind of does that without the guides, whatever. But this one's really useful actually. So we're going to go ahead, right? And we're going to maybe get a little bit bigger to like around 50. Okay. And we're going to start grooming this hair back. Okay. So we'll start by grooming this a little bit back. This one we'll start grooming a little bit back. These, you know, over here. And we'll start creating a bit of a hair groom for the character. Like that. Okay. And you know, the kind of style that you want to do can be up to you. Now, the other thing that I want to do is I want to create on some of these, like for example, on these. Now, by the way, you notice if I do half of the groom, the other one on the other side is grooming the same way. Like, look at this. See that? It's kind of like, oh, why did it lose it? That's odd. I can make this smaller. Hold on. Yeah, see, like this one is grooming this one, and that's because we have hair symmetry on. If we were to turn that off, then I can groom this one independently of that one. Okay, so if you're doing non-symmetrical hairstyles, you want to turn off this hair symmetry. Okay, so like let's say I want to drag this one a little bit this way, and drag this one a little bit this way, and groom this one, you know, more this way, and this one like that. And then this one, I'm going to sort of like drag down a little bit. And this one, I'm going to see, I'm just grooming away here. Okay. And I'm knowing that I'm resting confident in the fact that it's happening symmetrically. See, now the nice thing about this mode where you're just doing the tips is that you can do the tips without really worrying about, you know, the other picking up the other hairs if you touch them. Okay, so let's just say it's going to be something like that. Okay. Now something like that. Now, for example, on this one, if I were to bring my hairs back in as it stands right now, okay, because we're going to do more stuff to the hair. But if we were just to bring the viewport that got hairlines in here, okay, this is sort of how it looks right here. You can actually groom with the hairs in there, but we're gonna actually mess up this hair more. It's still very regular, okay? But the thing is that there's actually a thing over here. It's like a scissors, and you can start cutting some of the hair like in the back. You can make these guides a little bit smaller if you want. Okay, so you can start doing that. Now, so now if we were to look at this hair, okay, let's go back in the viewport. Let's actually go ahead to the hairs, and we're going to viewport. We're going to go back to the guidelines right here, but we're going to bring up our Redshift render view here, okay, and then we'll send this to the render view like this. Okay, so we're starting to get a little bit of what we want, but it still looks terrible actually because it's all too regular. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go back to the, and it might be too dense too. We could lower it to 20,000 hairs, but we're going to go back to this hair material here. And the first thing we want to change is there's something in here called Frizz, and Frizz is really useful because what Frizz does, I'm just going to invoke it right away, and right away the hair is going to look a lot better because what it's doing is that each hair doesn't grow exactly the same like every other hair. They're not like robots. Every hair goes a little bit differently. So if I were to go ahead now onto the Frizz, and if I were to up that hair a little bit more, let's say to 20%, okay? Now we've got, more Frizz. Now the thing is that the way that this curve is going is it actually starts out not frizzy, and it ups the frizziness the longer the hair gets, okay? I actually want it to go frizzy kind of like from its inception, okay? I want it to be frizzy like that, okay? The next thing that's really useful, actually another thing that's useful is called the length. And what you can do is you can click that, and that will vary the ends of the hair so that they don't all end in exactly the same length, okay? So what's happening is that, and you can vary this amount. So they're not all the same length, okay? But one thing that's really, really useful also when you're doing hair is something called clumping, okay? And this happens to a lot of people if you look at their hair. And it happens because of oil and other things. Hair clumps together. So if I invoke this right away, and let's say I were to do more, clumping will do like maybe 50%. Okay? You can see that the hair wants to clump together. Okay? By the way, if you were back on that Mohawk style and you were to click like 100% clumping, you could get like spiked hair. Okay? Which kind of be cool if you were doing like a punk rock thing or something like that. So, but we're not going to do that. We're going to go about 25% on the clumping, okay, or maybe more. We'll actually go more. We'll go about 40% on the clumping. And that's fine. That looks okay. There are other things you can fool around here too. Curling, twisting, kinking. Okay, if you're going to do like African American hair, this comes in really useful, as well as other things too. But I will say this, thickness, length, and clumping are probably the three that you're going to be using the most often, okay? So now the thing is that if you were to zoom out here, okay, you can see that we've got sort of like a nice hairstyle on the guy, okay? You could groom it a little bit better on the back, maybe not have it stick out so much on the back, okay? Kind of the lighting, because of the lighting, it's kind of like messing it up, but I would probably bring that back. I just don't want to do it now because it's going to take too much time. I'd actually bring the back a little bit closer to the head, and then it won't look so weird in the back. But now let's talk about texturing this hair just really quickly. Okay, So what we're going to do is we are going to make a new material, and we're going to say just a standard material. By the way, yeah, just a standard material. We'll call it RS hair. Okay, and the thing is what I'm going to do, actually, let me bring in my, my Redshift render viewer. Okay, and what we're going to do is we are going to, let's bring in my set for the heck of it, is we are going to create a new node here. Okay, it's called the hair node. Then there's a legacy one and there's a newer one. I like the newer one, so let's choose the newer one. It's called principled hair. Okay, and what we're going to do is we are going to bring it into, we actually don't need the material. We go straight from the hair node into the surface. Okay, now here's how it works. Right now it comes in there and nothing's happening. Why? And also, why is this eye cloudy? That's odd. Well, oh, there it goes. Okay. Who knows? Anyway, so the thing is that, let's get a little bit closer to the hair. Thing that happens is that, well, let's drag this hair thing right onto the hair, and you drag it on over here. So the way that it works is that you've got this hair mat first, and then comes the Redshift hair. Now, right now, this hair is really, really dark. Okay, and the thing is that so also why aren't I picking up any highlights? There, let me get a little highlights on this hair. Okay, I can actually rotate. Maybe I'll rotate this light. You know, an easy way to rotate it is I can just put a null. It's in the center of the world. Make this light a child of it, and then take this light and just sort of like rotate it around. Well, we'll rotate it to about there. So the thing is that let's click on this principled hair node. If I want to make the hair, right now it's too dark, right? So if I want to make it lighter towards the blonde, I decrease the melanin in the hair. Okay, the more less melanin you have, the more the hair goes towards blonde. Right now it's like a dirty blonde, and the melanin redness is how red the hair is. So if you're looking more for like a blonde hair, you would decrease the melanin and you would decrease the melanin redness. The more melanin redness you have, the more like a strawberry blonde you would have. Okay, so what you're having, you know what? I want to actually make the hair to be more clumpy. So let's make it 50% or 66%. Okay, like that maybe. But you can make hair, that's a little bit too much, maybe 60. And you can maybe try crazing out the frizz a little bit to like 30%. Okay, if you wanted to have them, anyway, that's all up to you. Now, if you wanted them to have like green hair, okay, rather than just brownish or blondish hair, you could forget about the melanin, and you would say, you would take this albedo mix to like 1, and now it's going to use this color over here. So for example, if you wanted like green hair, you know, on your character, you could now change this albedo. Okay, and then he would have green hair. So that's how you have, and then if you want to mix the two, you could actually mix the two. There I'm mixing the two. That maybe even looks a little bit better. And what you can do in the variation here is like you could vary it maybe to like white or gray hairs in there. And then if you up the stray hair fraction, okay, what'll happen is you'll start getting some gray hairs in there mixed in, which I guess would have the effect of making your character look a little older. Especially, this will be more evident if we forget about the albedo mix and make it a little bit brownish, browner the hair. Okay, now you can see that he's got like gray hair in there. See that? A little bit of gray hair in there. So I don't want him to have that much gray hair, but maybe we'll have a touch of gray. Like our character has had a little experience in this world. And that's how you could put hair in to your character. And you could spend more time getting a better hair groom. I just basically showing you some basic techniques. And that's actually looks nice when the hair is a little bit backlit. So actually, we could actually spend 6 courses on hair. It's actually, the hair system in Cinema 4D is really deep. As a matter of fact, just a little plug for you guys is that there is a hair tutorial on my website, on my YouTube channel, if you want to get more information about hair. Little plug there, but it's a 2-hour long thing. But the thing is that, like I said, you could spend a week on the hair just talking about dynamics and all that type of thing, and different ways to reroute hair, reroute guides, and so on and so forth. The one on my website does go for a much deeper dive, but we don't have time to do that in this course. But maybe we will do a how Maxon series just on hair. But for now, there is that one on my website. You can check it out. But are there any questions about what we've talked about in this class?
Yeah, so there are a couple, and that's really cool about first of all, the hair looked really, really great, and great comments as always. And what I can do in the handout for next week, I'll link to that hair tutorial on your YouTube channel, so everyone will have access to that. And I can link it when we post it onto our Maxon Training Team YouTube as well, so everyone can find that. So yeah, a couple of quick questions. So Wesley was wondering, does hair survive an FBX export?
I believe if you want to have it in FBX, you have to convert the hair to geometry, which you can do. So you would actually convert this hair to polygons. And you can do that. And that's how you can export it in FBX. But as far as Cinema 4D's native hair system, the answer is no, not really. I mean, that's specific to Cinema 4D.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So just turn it to geometry. Another quick one. Bernd and Hannah were both asking, wouldn't it be more realistic to swap the thickness values of the hair?
Yeah,
so
but well, not really. I don't think so. I think it's thicker at the roots and thinner at the hair, at the tips. What do you say, Elly?
I would say it's thicker at the root, but I mean, it's so tiny, isn't it?
Yeah.
For real hair, at least. Maybe for cartoon
it depends
hair, it's a little bit different.
I would stick to thicker at the root, because this way the hair will look more wispy as it gets thinner.
Yeah.
If I could just go right now, I could try to make it even thinner at the root, and actually you'll see the hair will get like much silkier, less coarse if you were to do that. But I would stick to thicker at the root and thinner at the tip.
Cool. Got another one from Git. Can you do anything about the straight line at the bottom of the hairs?
Yes, you can. I mean, that's what I go into in the other hair tutorial. We didn't really have time to get into that right now because it involves using density maps. But we can, you know, maybe we can do that. You could check that other thing out, or maybe we can talk about that. But yes, you can. You would use density maps. You would actually use a map.
Yeah, well, I'll definitely, yeah, I'll make sure that we link to that in the handout for next week and inside of this YouTube recording. So keep an eye on that link if you want to check that out.
Oh, so wait. Bernd is saying, yep, it's thicker at the root, but Joe did it the other way around. Oh, really? I did? Hold on. Where's the hair map? Oh, here it is. I did it the other way around. No, you see, you think that I did it the other way around because there's a 1 and there's a 7.5 here. Oh, what? You're right. No, I did do it the other way around. You're absolutely right. Wait, 0.07. Oh, yeah, you're right. Absolutely. I needed another 0 there. Absolutely. That actually already looks better, but now it's a little bit too. Wait, 0.1.
To be fair, it shows how creative you can be, especially with like a cartoon style character. You don't necessarily have to follow the rules of the real world. It's whatever looks cool in your opinion.
Yeah, let's just try to make them the same. 0.01 and 0.01. Yeah. Let me just see this for a little bit closer. So I might want to go like point, because that's looking really wispy. So I might want to really go, and thanks for pointing this out. I might want to go 0.05, let's say, to 0.01. Let's see what this looks like. Maybe that looks a little bit better.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, it looked great anyway.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, good call.
Yeah, well done to Bernd and Hannah, I think, were the ones who
Thanks,
spotted that.
Bernd.
And yeah, so there are no other questions, just lovely comments. So Trish, fantastic couple of hours. Bernd saying that's so cool, trick and function. Thanks for everything. Drake saying mad props to Joe. Marcelo saying next time just pure hair. Thanks, Joe. Hannah saying thanks for the link to the hair tutorial. Fantastic and enlightening webinar. And I definitely agree.
I'm gonna bring my camera back, which I can't see, but are you back?
You're definitely there. I'm also here. Yeah, I think you may have hit the option to hide them, which people can do. So then the screen becomes a full screen. But yeah, we switch ours off anyway.
Webcams, show all webcams. Oh, there I am. Okay, very good.
We should pop back.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks. Thank you thanks. Yeah, so okay, well, great. I guess if there's no other questions, I think that, so we've covered, you know, a lot of texturing techniques in Redshift, everything from painting our own maps to bringing in other texture sets and UVing and how to lay them out on UVs. And then we talked about, you know, the hair system and stuff like that. So, you know, I do want to thank everybody for coming, and let's take a look at any final comments. I can actually see them myself, actually.
A couple from Bernd. No, and thank you for not only like this session, but the whole kind of sessions that we've done so far, the whole workshop, putting this all together. It's, as you can see by the comments each week, everyone is loving it. I'm especially loving it and learning so much, like sitting here and trying to do the questions, but also getting really invested in what's happening on screen.
Great, great. I'm glad to hear that. I'm looking at your hair and I'm thinking about how I could have, you know, created it with the hair system.
Just up the frizz, probably.
Right, up the frizz on the top. Right.
Well, get you all a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
cool. Well, yeah, I guess we'll wrap up. We ran over a little, but hey, it's what we
Yeah.
do now, isn't it? We love
Yeah.
it. Yeah, thanks again to you, Joe, and thank you to everyone who is there and all your great questions as always. I'm sure they're so beneficial for everyone else as well, which is why we like to answer them live as much as we can.
Yeah. Thank you, Bernd and Syed and Yulia, and of course Hannah, and Cesar says, Elly, I love your accent, and so do I. You always make everything sound so classy. That's
Oh,
what's good.
thank you, thank you.
You speak
It's
proper
just a
English.
normal accent for me, but I'm glad you all like it.
Thank you. Well, thanks everyone for coming.
Yeah, have a lovely rest of your day, everyone, and have a great week. And yeah, we will see you for part 5 next Wednesday.
That's right. See you guys later.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.